Rivian, Lucid, Lordstown, Canoo and Fisker. 5 EV startups I profiled a year ago that all elicited high valuations under the promise of creating electric vehicles that could take on Tesla's dominance. But fast forward to today and the share price of those companies has plummeted. Part of the reason? Well, some of these newcomers simply haven't made as many cars as they'd hoped, and all of them are yet to turn a profit.
Operating a plant that's not producing a lot of cars, there's no better way to burn through cash.
And now, some are hitting a make or break moment. So where do these companies stand and what are they doing to survive? Let's find out. Firstly, if you want a snapshot of where these companies were a year ago, then go check out the profile I made on them back in 2021. Back then, none of these companies had actually produced a commercial vehicle.
In the auto industry, nothing is harder than trying to move from a prototype to mass production.
That's WSJ's Detroit bureau chief, Christina Rogers, who told me that while trying to make a new car can be challenging for any automaker, trying to do so at a time of supply chain woes, COVID outbreaks, chip shortages, geopolitical unrest, the tech sell-off and inflation can make it even harder.
It's hard for even the traditional automakers. For smaller companies with unproven track records, it's even harder for them to get suppliers to trust them or to put them at the top of the list.
In a recent letter to investors, Rivian said that its car launches have been executed during one of the most complex operating environments in decades. Lordstown says, like many others in the industry, it has suffered from part shortages and raw material availability. Canoo's CEO told me that on any given day, the company is wrestling with supply for around 60 parts, though it's a fraction of the 1,800 that go into making the vehicle. Rivian said semiconductor shortages had led to delays, and Lucid has said that difficulty getting hold of carpet and glass had hampered its production efforts. Fisker, meanwhile, said it was working with manufacturers Magna and Foxconn to proactively address any supply chain challenges. So how many cars have these companies actually made or delivered? Because there is a difference. And what do delays mean for them? Well, Rivian slashed its 2022 production forecast from 50,000 to 25,000 vehicles. So far, the company says it's manufactured around 5,000 units since it started production in 2021. Luxury sedan maker Lucid also cut its forecast from 20,000 to between 12 and 14,000 vehicles. So far, it says it's delivered 360. And while Canoo said it hopes to produce between 3,000 to 6,000 vehicles in 2022, so far, it's only made 39 of its Gamma testing models, and is currently producing around 8 vehicles a week. Lordstown, which had hoped to be producing vehicles in September 2021, pushed back production to the third quarter of 2022, and has said it needs to raise an additional $150 million in capital before the end of the year. Fisker, however, says it remains on track to produce its first vehicles this year. Not producing many or any vehicles means one thing.
None of these companies is turning a profit. They're carrying heavy losses.
In the first quarter of 2022, these companies posted millions of dollars in losses. And while Rivian and Lucid are both sat on sizable investments, both Canoo and Lordstown have, at separate times, said there is a substantial doubt about their company's ability to continue. When I asked about their losses, Lucid and Fisker declined to comment, Lordstown referred me to their earnings, and Rivian referred me to a previous WSJ interview. Canoo, however, told me their strategy was to raise capital whenever they hit major milestones. So what can these companies do to try and survive? Well, one method is to simplify configuration options to get more vehicles off the production line. In an investor call, Rivian said it was doing just that, prioritising certain trim options to maximise the number of vehicles it can produce. Another method is to simply raise the price of your vehicle. Both Rivian and Lucid have done just that, raising the price for customers who haven't pre-ordered before a certain date. And Fisker too has said it can't commit to pricing after the first 40,000 units or vehicles produced from 2024 onwards. Others have sold off assets to generate more cash. Lordstown recently sold off its Ohio factory to Foxconn, who will manufacture Lordstown's vehicle, for a purchase price of $230 million. And where you make your vehicle can make a difference. Canoo told me they'd moved manufacturing from Europe to the US to be less exposed to currency swings and supply chain snarls. So, will these companies make it? Well, Christina said that changes in production or delivery rates was the simplest way to tell whether these companies were overcoming their production woes. But if 2022 has taught us one thing, it's that supply chains are fragile. So even if production rates increase, it might be worth keeping an eye on how much cash these companies have left.
Honestly, the EVs that have the most cash or have easy access to cash are probably the ones that are going to prevail. This business is very simple. It costs a lot of money to build a car and get a car off the ground. And if you don't have it, that's it. Game over.